What if everything you see and experience around you isn't real in the way you think? What if reality is actually just an illusion created by your mind? Picture for a moment that the world we live in is like a hologram. It's not solid or unchanging, but instead, it's a flowing energy connected to us in ways that we can't see but can feel. This idea isn't just a theory, it's starting to get attention in modern science. What we consider reality might actually be a constantly shifting energy projection, influenced by the frequencies our mind emits. Every thought and emotion we have is like a wave traveling through the universe, changing the way we see things. But how do we know this is true? There's a lot we don't understand about how the mind and the universe interact, but we do have clues. One important clue comes from a study done by the CIA called the Gateway Process. This was a secret project, now declassified, that looked into the connection between human consciousness and dimensions beyond normal perception. The researchers weren't just studying altered states of consciousness. They were trying to understand how the mind can reach and even shape the world around it. This study links ancient spiritual practices with recent scientific discoveries. For example, the idea of a universal hologram is already part of quantum physics, where the universe is seen as a giant, interconnected energy field. The human mind is not just a passive receiver, but an active participant, interacting with and shaping the universal hologram. Today, we will explore how the human mind and the universe could actually function as interconnected holograms, and how the CIA's research sheds light on this. We'll look at how our consciousness is connected to the universe and how we can change our perception of the world. For a long time, people thought the human mind was simply a viewer of reality, but the declassified CIA study, the Gateway Process, challenges that idea. It shows that our consciousness has the power to access deeper layers of reality and interact with the universe in ways that traditional science couldn't have imagined. This study, conducted in a secret setting, not only explores the nature of consciousness, but suggests that the mind doesn't just observe the world, it can also shape it, changing how we perceive what we consider real. The CIA's research used a specific method to study altered states of consciousness, aiming to understand how the brain interacts with deeper layers of reality through techniques like deep meditation, hemisphere synchronization, and mental exercises. The participants in the study were able to access altered states of consciousness that allowed them to see and interact with aspects of reality that we don't normally perceive. These techniques weren't just spiritual experiments, they were seen as ways to change the way we experience the universe. But the CIA research goes further than just studying altered states. It suggests that the mind can actually change reality itself. This doesn't just mean seeing different dimensions, it means being able to influence what we see and experience. By tapping into these deeper layers of reality, the mind can not only understand hidden energy patterns, but can also alter them, changing how we interact with the world. In these expanded states of consciousness, the mind stops being just an observer and becomes an active creator, shaping what it sees. Through this process, the mind accesses what the CIA referred to as layers of reality, states of awareness where the line between the self and the universe starts to blur, allowing consciousness to shape perception. One of the most powerful techniques studied was hemisphere synchronization, which uses specific sounds and frequencies to balance the two sides of the brain. When the brain is synchronized, consciousness expands, and perception of reality becomes more fluid and flexible. Deep meditation was also an essential practice, helping participants connect directly with the universe and its endless possibilities. These techniques were designed to change brain frequencies and facilitate direct communication with the energetic reality surrounding us. These studies are important because they support the theory of the universal hologram. If the universe operates like a hologram, an energy-based interconnected projection, then human consciousness has the ability to interact with that projection. By expanding our minds, we don't just perceive reality, we can change and even distort it. Reality is not fixed, but fluid and shaped by our consciousness. The CIA's research aligns with ancient ideas that the mind and the universe are deeply connected, and it provides a scientific framework for understanding this connection. Practices that expand consciousness and tune our minds to universal frequencies give us access to a reality that's far richer and more complex than we thought. As science and spirituality come together, we begin to understand that we are not just observers of reality. We are active co-creators of it. Traditionally, human perception was thought to be passive. Our senses take in information, and the brain creates an image of the world. But this idea has been challenged. Every thought and emotion is a form of energy, a vibration that spreads throughout the universe, interacting with the energy around us. The idea that reality is a holographic projection helps us understand how our minds work. In this model, the universal hologram is a dynamic reality formed by energy patterns, and the human mind doesn't just observe those patterns, it also projects them, shaping what we experience as reality. To understand this better, let's look at how a hologram works and how it applies to the mind. A hologram is a three-dimensional image that contains all the information of an object, even if it's cut into pieces. If reality is like a hologram, everything we perceive, whether it's the physical world, our thoughts, or emotions, is an energetic projection of patterns interacting in complex ways. In this view, every person is both a receptor and a projector of these patterns. The human mind is not just a passive screen for the world to be projected onto, but an active tool that tunes and projects these energy patterns to create the world we perceive. This perception is not just a copy of the outside world, but an active creation shaped by the mental frequencies we emit. These frequencies, influenced by our thoughts, emotions, and states of consciousness, interact with the energy field around us, shaping how we see and experience reality. The connection between mental frequency and how we perceive reality is vital. When our mind aligns with higher frequencies, our perception expands and we access more subtle layers of reality. However, when our frequencies are out of alignment due to stress, fear, or doubts, our perception narrows, making the world feel smaller and more difficult. This isn't just about how we see things, it's about how our mind projects reality and shapes what we perceive as real. Recent research in quantum physics and neuroscience shows how the human mind interacts with the quantum field that underlies the universe. Every thought generates an energy wave that moves through this field, influencing what we perceive and even what we experience. This suggests that the mind is a creative force that constantly shapes and redefines reality. Let's break this down with a simple example. Imagine looking at a piece of paper. What you see isn't the paper itself, but the interpretation your mind creates. The light bouncing off the paper hits your eyes, but it's your brain that forms the image you see. This means that when you look at the paper, you're not seeing the paper directly. You're seeing a version of it created by your mind. The same is true for everything around us. Every time we observe something, our mind is projecting its own version of reality based on our mental filters, experiences, and emotions. Just as you can alter a hologram by changing its frequency, you can also change your reality by adjusting your mental frequency. When we realize that we are projecting our own reality, we begin to see how much power we have over the world around us. This awareness brings true freedom, the freedom to create the reality we want by adjusting the way we interact with the universe. As mentioned earlier, the mind has the power to go beyond normal perception, letting us access different layers of reality. But to reach these layers, we need to change our mental frequency, much like tuning a radio to different stations. Reality, like a hologram, responds to our consciousness, and by altering that consciousness, we can tap into deeper, broader, and more mysterious dimensions of perception. The gateway process, the declassified CIA study, shows how we can expand consciousness in a controlled way. This research revealed that the human mind can enter altered states of perception through specific practices that open up realities not usually accessible through normal senses. These practices not only expand our perception, but also change our relationship with time, space, and reality itself. Some of the key techniques studied include deep meditation, hemisphere synchronization, and visualization. Deep meditation helps quiet the mind, creating an open state of awareness that allows access to higher levels of consciousness. When in this state, the mind can perceive layers of reality that are usually hidden from our senses. Hemisphere synchronization is a more advanced technique that balances the two hemispheres of the brain using specific sounds and frequencies. When the hemispheres are synchronized, the mind enters a state where the line between ordinary perception and subtle realities begins to blur. This mental coherence helps the mind connect with higher dimensions of consciousness, accessing information beyond what the logical mind can process. Visualization is another method explored in this CIA study. Visualization involves creating vivid mental images of goals or desires. By doing so, the mind aligns its frequency with the energies needed to manifest those intentions, changing the way we experience reality. To understand how these techniques work, it's important to recognize the concept of altered states of consciousness. When the mind enters deep meditation or intense focus, it goes beyond normal sensory perception. It shifts to higher or lower frequencies, allowing the practitioner to access other layers of reality. Simply put, these states allow the mind to see what is normally invisible or perceive what goes beyond ordinary human vision. Expanding consciousness doesn't just change our perception, it also opens up new ways to interact with the universe. Mental frequency is key to understanding how we can access different realities. The mind's frequency, which can be adjusted through techniques like meditation, visualization, and hemisphere synchronization, determines the kind of reality we experience. When the mind operates at lower frequencies, it connects with denser material realities where time and space feel more solid. But when the mental frequency is raised, the mind begins to perceive subtler realities beyond time and space, opening up information and experiences that aren't available in ordinary reality. These techniques don't just offer a new way to see reality, they allow us to understand the deeper structure of reality, the energy patterns that make it up, and connect with dimensions beyond what we can physically sense. With the right training, the human mind can access and interact with these dimensions, changing how we perceive life and the universe. When we focus our thoughts on something, like imagining a goal or truly believing in something we want, we are changing our mental frequency to bring that reality closer. When our mind is in sync with this frequency, it starts to notice new opportunities, make internal changes, and even drive actions that take us toward that goal. This is a clear example of how we can consciously influence how we see reality. As a result, our perception of reality is no longer just a response to what's happening around us, but something that we actively shape through controlling our inner frequencies. By understanding and using this power, human consciousness can create a reality that aligns with our deepest desires. A deeper understanding of the universe and the mind shows that they are closely connected, working together as one network of energy and perception. Reality isn't fixed. It's a dynamic projection that we can influence. Once we realize we can change how we see reality, we unlock the ability to live more intentionally, transforming how we experience life and relate to the universe. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this video resonated with you, feel free to like, subscribe, and share it so others can also benefit from this message. Don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts and experiences. Thanks again for watching and supporting us. See you in the next video.